Hey everybody, how's it going? Team Most Awesome, Team Canada, Stephen Garner here. I'm just gonna change out this paracord or whatever, and I just kind of want to show you how I go about doing it. There's a couple different techniques here that I have used in the past, and I'll just show you. I'll show you them right now. Cool. So here we have the new snorkel that we're gonna be running. It's a little bit oversized, and when you're running this paracord, it does come from your handle through these retainers. There's three of them on your throttle line, and then they come. There's a second and third one, and then it goes in through your snorkel after the last retainer, out through your board, and then it has gets fastened by this knot. I'll see if I can kind of show you how I do this knot so that it doesn't get pulled back through. So normally when you make a knot, you just go around and through. But when you choke that up and you make it really tight, it does get pretty small. So the knot I use on my Jetsurfs is the exact same traditional knot, but instead of just going around and through once, I go around and through a second time. And then when you start pulling it tight, you can see how you get kind of like a double knot. And where the one knot covers over the second knot, it's thick enough that when it gets choked up, it doesn't get pulled through the hole. So that's how I'd make that knot, and then I pull it as tight as I possibly can. And then what I do is I cut it with like a couple millimeters, or like I guess a quarter inch of line left. And then you take your lighter and you melt it. And when it gets all soft and malleable, I push on it with my fingers and I push it over top of the knot. It will be hot, so like watch that you don't burn your fingers and stuff like that. And then after that, I take a glob of glue and I glue the whole ball up so the ball stays completely solid. So no matter how much you pull on it, it's not going to come undone. So yeah, that's how I do the knot for the front, underneath the front of the board. I'm sure there's lots of different knots that will work, but the reason why I do this knot and do it up the way that I do is because it only leaves me with this little tiny knot and ball, if you will. And then when it's pulled up against the bottom of the board, it's not very noticeable. There's very little surface area that sticks out past the indentation that it's supposed to go into. So anyways, that's how I do the knot. And then I run it through the snorkel, and I leave myself enough room so that I can get it through these retainers. So that's what I'll do now is I'll work it through there. There's two different retainer types I have here. This is like the regular retainer, just how you normally pull it through. I left this kite string in when I pulled the other one out so that I can use the kite string to pull it back through afterwards. Works really easy and really well. Okay, so we'll go over here. We'll have this paracord. It's important to know which way you're going to route it. So I'm going to plan on routing it right here on this inside, and then it's going to go over top and then across. So the kind of knot we do here to get this thing to have a good tension so we can pull it through is we make a loop, and then we go through the inside of it from the bottom, around the outside, all the way under, and then back through the loop. Then when I pull on this tight, it will choke up on that green paracord. And you see how it kind of still slides? That's fine, because what I'll do is pull it as tight as I can, and then I'll put a couple more knots after that initial knot, and I'll just put traditional knots in. And what will happen here is it'll choke up on that. Same way as you pull your cord through for your airline and all your other cords too. Like this is the kind of knot I use for all this kind of, anytime I have to pull a line through. There we go, nice tight knot. Awesome. And then what I'll do is I'll pull on this kite string, get that into that channel that I want to work this through. There we go. And then I just pull it back and through. And once I get that right up to the fastener there, I'll help guide it through. So obviously it's larger than the opening because it's a tight rubber fit. So I'll just like we did with your airline, roll the rubber fastener back and then try to get it as tight in as you can. And then just lift it up a little bit. Use a flathead screwdriver for this, just to help lift a little bit. And then keep on pulling that line. And then once I have it into there, what I do is I roll that back over. And then usually you can just kind of pinch and lift the rubber and pull it through like so. And that paracord afterwards, when it's fully pulled down, will be the first one in the set of 3. Cool. Well, I'll do this one really fast. I'll take my small screwdriver, run it down the inside of that fastener, and then just lift it up so that I can get that knot, at least the head of that knot in. Then flip it back over, and then just pull it through. You can probably see it just coming through nice and easy. So I got it right where I want it there. Now that we've been now that we've made it through that part that the snorkel is going to cover up, I'll start pulling all this line up and through and taking up all this slack. So what I do is I hold the snorkel right at the end here, closest to the top fastener or retainer or whatever you want to call it, and I'll take up a good chunk of that slack, and then I'll reach back in and I'll grab it on the other side of that retainer, and I'll just pull it all through so there's the least amount of slack, so that when you have the snorkel in place and you're pulling on this string, you have the least amount of string you have to pull through that section inside the snorkel. So there you go. And you'll have this slack here, but you'll actually be able to get that for the second retainer on this side, because that retainer is just inside the top of the snorkel. So now I can just pull that line and it'll actually tighten right up. And if you look on it, it's kind of hard to see, but it's actually taut, and there's no knots, there's no impedances. It's a good line right through. So now when I go ahead and line that up with my bolt holes to put my snorkel in place, I can actually pull it through the snorkel as well as those 2 retentioners, and that's how it'll end up being. When I bolt that all together, this will be a nice straight line. You can just pull this knot right off the end just by working it. And the nice thing about this knot is when you pull it, there's no knots left in it, so you can reuse this kite string. So and then just like a normal, when we tie the knots onto our handle, what we do is we come around underneath, over and around the outside, then underneath both, back through the middle, and then when we pull it tight, it'll be all noosed up. And then for length, the normal riding position for this throttle cable, you can adjust it obviously for your height of rider, is normally just off the front of the engine. So when I set these up, you'll find your own perfect personal length, like where you personally like to have it. But whenever I'm setting it up for somebody else off a factory default setting, I try to choke it up so that it ends up being in that same vicinity. There we go, like that. And let it choke up, and it ends up right there on top of the engine, just on the front of the engine. And then we just once you have that nice and tight, we just put a couple more knots right behind that initial knot, for the same reason why we do it when we're pulling the lines through, just so that it won't slack off. That's it. Pull that tight, And there you go. You got your Jetsurf handle back tied in, knotted up. Some people are smart, and then what they'll do is they have a little tiny rubber thing here to pull this back through so that it holds that tension out of the way. What you'll see other guys doing is some guys will wrap it around a whole bunch of time and just keep on knotting and knotting and knotting, so you have like maybe 10 knots in or whatever, but because they're all together, they look a lot better. And that's what I usually do is I'll put a whole bunch of knots in the line for my personal board, and they're just loose. They're not like actually tight. They're not really doing anything. And this is just an example. I'm not actually doing it right now, but so I'll do that, and then right near the top, I'll put a zip tie so that it's all close together and I don't have stuff flapping around and stuff. And then I also usually cut this back and make it so that it's shorter, because there's no need for me to, because I know my riding style and where I want my paracord to go to and how long I want my arm. I don't adjust it much, so I usually just get it in, get it perfect, line mine up, and then cut and trim it up. Anyways, that's Stephen Garner, how to change your paracord. Hope I helped. Have a good one.